We made this.
Okay, this has been a while. I've managed to give myself quite a few weeks break from doing stuff to the podcast in terms of recording and researching. It's just the social media I've been doing, so I'll give myself a break from recording and editing, and I've completely forgotten how everything works. I know that my name is Matthew Latham. I know that this podcast is called Pick a Disc, and I think this is a podcast where people pick a disc to talk about for whatever reason they want to, but don't quote me on that. This might be a podcast that, I don't know, discovers ice cream flavours and then just shows and just shares this brand new flavour of ice cream. And thinking about it, why doesn't this podcast just be about that? So this is Pick an Ice Cream flavour. So this is what happens when I decide to take about a month off of doing things. But yes, I'm Matt, this is Pick a Disc, and as usual, if I remember how the podcast works, someone comes on to talk about an album, and the person coming on to talk about an album today is Aviv Rubinstein from the Lyrics for Lunch podcast, and he's going to be talking about The Teeth, You're My Lover Now. And as usual, we talk about all the things we talk about on the podcast about an album, songs, blah 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 blah, the live aspect, etc., and just like how discovering those weird, like the way you discover music, just like how it affects you and stuff. And it's a good conversation. I think Aviv's bloody hilarious. I had to cut out quite a lot of me laughing at him, of what he said, not laughing at him, just laughing because of what he said. I think he's an incredibly hilarious guy. So yes, so I wasn't laughing at him. I need to make that abundantly clear. But anyway, I'm looking at the clock and I've been going on a bit too long than I usually do for this bit. So I'm going to do the usual spiels, follow us on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook under Pick a Disc. There's the Discord link where if you want to come on and just talk about music or just share what you've been listening to, join the Discord thingy. We made this, have a Patreon that you can sign up to get episodes of, like, at the moment it's episodes of like movie podcasts early, but you're supporting the whole of the network. And as usual, if there's a place to review us, opinion forward, and just lie and say that this podcast is good, so that more people can lie about it being good as well. And with that, I think that's everything all ticked off, and it's time for me to stop yapping at myself and to start yapping towards Aviv. So here's Aviv talking about The Teeth. I think I covered most of the east coast of the US. I'm now gradually getting a dent into the west coast. So
yes, indeed.
So I've got another California-based guest with me today, and it's Aviv Rubinstein from the Lyrics for Lunch podcast. How you doing, Aviv?
I'm waving because that's good for podcasts. I'm doing great. How are you doing?
I'm really good. I'm quite enjoying we was just talking before recording about the fact that England seems to be in the middle of a heat wave, in that
yes.
Basically people were moaning about a week and a half ago about it raining all the time and it being cold for May, and now we're moaning about it being too warm. So it's
it's a picturesque 74 degrees Fahrenheit here. I don't know what that is in centigrade because I am a stupid American.
It's around mid-20s in Celsius, I think, which I don't know what the thing is. I don't know how you translate it. There's probably some people listening here going, "It's warmer than."
Yeah, I lived in Cambodia for a while, and they did everything in Celsius, and I could do it in my head. I could do the conversion, but I have since forgotten it.
It is what it is, but it's bloody warm. That's what I was. Bloody warm. Yeah, but yeah. So as much as, again, as I've said previously, as much as the Brit in me would love to talk about the weather for an hour, we're not here to talk about the weather. No, we're here to talk about a band, and it's a band that Aviv has picked to talk about. Yes. And it's one of these episodes where I can't cheat and just read off Wikipedia, or just basically nick all the annotations from Genius, which I obviously have not done in the past, even though I might have confessed to it several times. Aviv, why don't you tell the listeners the disc that you've picked for today?
So I've picked a band. I've picked a disc called "You're My Lover Now" by a band called The Teeth, and they are not a super famous band. We actually had a conversation about like how esoteric is allowed to go on this show, because this is a band that I've been kind of proselytizing about for more than a decade because they're not nearly as famous as they should be, and so this is one of my all-time top 5 favorite albums.
As I am much a big fan of like just discovering bands, or again, it's not a case of like I feel like every time I seem to talk about this, I always feel like you're setting yourself to sound like a real pretentious arse, but as I quite like the idea of discovering bands on your own, and like it's not a case of deliberately looking for obscure stuff, but just finding stuff, and it's a longer conversation about the benefits and stuff of that. But I think just today,
my friends always make fun of me because the bands I still seem to listen to are like, the story is like, I saw them in a basement in a warehouse in New Jersey in 2006, and they only released one record, and it was on Tilt-A-Whirl, and so I have this kind of, I form these weird, strong attachments to bands that I've only seen or heard once that no one else seems to know. So I'm right there with you.
Like the only album was about 30 copies with a piece of paper envelope. Right. And it's a blank CDR with the Philips logo on and a pen written on that.
This album came out in 2007, and there was like a fad between 2007 and 2010, let's say, of bands not burning CDs anymore, but like selling thumb drives with the MP3s of their music on it.
I think at that point, it would have been cheaper. Wouldn't it?
Yeah, I definitely bought a band's thumb drive. The band was called Kill You in the Face, and I bought their thumb drive when I played with them in Boston in 2009.
Yeah, I think just on the day of recording, I appeared on my guest spot on the Over Underrated podcast. I talk about my underrated pick was a Manchester band, which was like quite a few people had never heard of, and like I was saying, like, oh, these should have been really big, should have been made bigger and stuff. And I remember suggesting it, and they're like, oh, okay, I don't think we've ever heard of these, which is, but it was quite nice to be able to introduce this like band, like these bands to people. So, which is what you're doing with me today with the,
I'm very excited.
Yeah.
Yes.
So
love the Teeth.
The Teeth, You're My Lover Now.
Yes.
Yeah. The amount of, I was trying to sketch how much mileage I can get by the jokes I can say by saying "You're my lover now," but I ran out after like one. But why
it's just that one joke over and over again. Yeah,
guys, "You're my lover now." I mean, the album, not the. So why have you picked "You're the Lover Now"?
So I think I mentioned this kind of briefly, but this band was poised to just be like massively successful. Rolling Stone was calling them like a band to watch, and they were hitting right at like the indie rock revival of the mid 2000s, like a la maybe Vampire Weekend or something like that. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere in 2008, they just like broke up. And had they kind of whatever stuck it out and gotten past whatever differences made them break up, I think that they would be in the same conversation as like multi-platinum selling artists like Vampire Weekend or oh Jesus, what's the name of that band? They did Bit to Orca. Fuck, god damn it. Oh, can I curse on this show?
Yeah, feel free. Yeah.
Cool. Fuck. What is that band called? I gotta Google it now. Hold on. They sang Temecula Sunrise, and the guitarist Dirty Projectors. So they'd be in the same conversation as Vampire Weekend or the Dirty Projectors or other kind of cool mathy indie rock bands.
How did you discover the Teeth?
So this is kind of an interesting story. I grew up in Philadelphia, and I went to school in Boston and at Boston University, and I listened to the Philadelphia indie rock radio station, which had switched only to online by that point. But I listened at work online, and they played of the Teeth's singles. So
when was this? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. Yeah, this was the summer of 2007. So You're My Lover Now had like just come out or was about to come out. I heard the song for the first time and I liked it, but I really fell in love with the band because of another band that I was a huge fan of, a Boston-based band called Bishop Allen. And I had gone to see Bishop Allen play at a club in Boston called the Middle East, and the Teeth opened up, and I was kind of familiar with them from hearing them on WXPN, which is that Philadelphia radio station, but saw them and was just completely and totally blown away, and then kind of chatted to them after their set, between the sets, let them know that I too was from Philly. We kind of knew some of the same people, and they hung out with us for the rest of the show and wound up actually crashing at my apartment that night because they needed a place to sleep.
Okay, so you either get the album pretty much from that night then, or?
They played a bunch of songs. It was one of the best performances I'd ever seen, and I got all their albums after that, and was an evangelist for them.
And that was in 2007. So
yeah, summer of 2007.
So was this the first album of theirs you actually listened to then?
Yeah, the first song that I heard was the Ball of the Dead Rat, which is a song on this album, but I had misread the title probably for like close to a decade and thought it was Ballad of the Dead Rat. And then it was only recently, like in the last couple of years, that I was like, no, it just says Ball of a Dead Rat.
All right.
So I've got great attention to detail, let me tell you.
So what was it that drew you into them then? So like, was it the live performance? Was it the same? Or was it just one of those, was it that feeling that I think anyone who goes to gigs goes now when you suddenly click?
It was definitely part that feeling.
Yeah.
But I think, can we like paint a picture of the way like rock and roll was in 2007?
Yeah,
right. Because we had the kind of super crest of the wave of emo with like My Chemical Romance and Fall Out Boy and Panic at the Disco. And we also had this kind of indie rock thing happening with like not very quote unquote ballsy guitars, kind of like clean guitars playing complicated, not even riff, but like complicated finger patterns, like and math. Singing about like, yeah, mathy, singing about like being in Brooklyn. Mm-hmm. And so this, I liked kind of everything, but this felt like adding some energy that I felt was missing from some of the indie rock. This added a lot of energy to that, and it gave me you ever hear a song that makes you feel like the inside of your own head, that someone has like externalized the inside of your own head? So that's what this album made me feel. For the benefit of
the tape, I am actually nodding. I was just like nodding with an expression of going, yes, 100 times, yes. Yeah, I've had several times where suddenly you click, I'm going to click and think, oh, hang on, this is it. This is in my head. How on earth did they break in?
And it's not even like part of it is lyrically, but the other part is just like kind of the energy with which they're playing the music and kind of the style and tone that the song has. You're like, oh, this is the soundtrack to like maybe some of the thoughts that I don't always want to have, or certain parts of myself that I don't like, or that kind of thing. Like it makes, the best music at its best makes you feel less alone. And that's what this did for me.
For those who don't know who the Teeth are, the Teeth were a
R.I.P.
It always throws me whenever I see Wikipedia articles for American bands, because I never can click with how.
We pluralize, right?
Oh no, you put it in the singular, so it's like the Teeth is
the Teeth. Yeah, what? Yeah, right.
Was,
the Teeth was. Yeah, we'll say the Rolling Stones. It depends. No, because we say the Rolling Stones were or are because it's a plural word, Stones.
Yeah.
But like, what's a singular? But AC/DC is, but the Rolling Stones are.
It always throws me because AC/DC are a group of people. It's like you wouldn't say Manchester United is a team. It's weird. Anyway.
We would say Manchester United is a team.
My head. I can't get my head around that.
We don't speak the language well, no. So like, don't listen to what we're doing.
Yeah, it's like, okay, the Teeth were an indie rock band from Philadelphia consisting of twin brothers, Aaron Mo Davis on rhythm guitar and Peter Mo Davis on bass guitar. Other members included Brian Ashby on lead guitar and Jonas I was still
Jonas.
I know his name is Jonas on drums. They were created.
Yeah.
They were formed in 2001 when the Mo Davis brothers moved to Philadelphia, and they've since risen to prominence in the Philadelphia area and have reached cult status throughout the rest of the United States. I have a feeling that this first paragraph was written in different stages of their...
Correct. Yeah. So it was the present tense before they broke up, and then they past tensified it.
Yeah. It's so like I think it says something where it seems like the Teeth's Wikipedia entry doesn't feel like it's actually been copyrighted to be fully in the past tense yet. But
right.
So they were a band that were based in Philadelphia, so they were kind of hometown heroes from where you grew up.
Mm-hmm. So and so there's another band from Philadelphia. Well, there's a bunch of bands from Philadelphia, but there's another band from Philadelphia that were kind of sister bands with the Teeth called Dr. Dog, which wound up being much more notorious, and they got big and famous, and they skew a little bit more like jam bandy or like kind of hippie-ish. But the Teeth and Dr. Dog did a split EP when they were first coming up, and they actually like reference each other in some of their songs, which is cool and fun.
Okay. And the album itself, You're the Lover Now, was the third album by them, and it was released on the 29th of May in 2007.
Correct.
And it was released on Park the Van, and the producer, and for about 20 seconds I got really excited. I got really excited after reading the name and realised I got completely the wrong person, because the producer's name is Nick Krill.
Not Nick Kroll.
Yeah, not Nick Kroll, which I was like, because for about 20 seconds I was like, oh, hang on, isn't that? And then it clicked for a minute. He goes, no, I got the wrong vowel. But Nick Krill, the producer, actually, if you click on his name on the Wikipedia article, it goes to an indie rock band, the Spinto Band. So,
which was also like kind of Philadelphia area local. But yeah, so funny you should bring that up. Nick Kroll actually has like a sketch about just being from Philadelphia, and he does a really fantastic Philadelphia accent, which is not an easy accent to do.
Oh, okay. Okay. Unfortunately, I think there's a certain point I struggle to differentiate with. I mean, I've had this with like people who've spoken about British accents. I think certain points of the East Coast, people say, "Oh, got a completely different accents," and I'm like, and just smiling and nodding and stuff. Yeah.
I can hear from your accent that you're from the North. That's all I know. No? South?
No.
I fucked it up?
I'm in the middle.
You're in the middle?
Yeah, Birmingham's in the middle, so I'm with Ozzy Osbourne and UB40 and...
Well, I am an idiot then, so clearly I can't tell either. But the Philadelphia accent is very far from actual English, and we say things like wooder to mean water, and anything that has an STR, like street, we would say street.
Okay.
We would put the shut in there. If listeners watch Mayor of Easttown, that takes place basically like where I grew up.
Okay, and for those who want a better understanding of the accent of where I'm from, just watch Peaky Blinders. Peaky Blinders is definitely Birmingham based, so it's Cillian Murphy.
So not the North. I apologize. I apologize earnestly.
To be fair, like if you probably could have said that to anyone who's from the North, and I get offended because there's about 1 million different accents from the North as well.
Even worse.
And there's 30 miles in between Liverpool and Manchester, and they sound completely different. So,
you English man.
Yeah, we need to. We try and get as much mileage out of our small island, but yeah. So okay, so You're My Lover Now. So we talk about the album briefly in general. You talked, one of the things that jumped out to me because the bit where I used to talk about my disclosure of if I knew anything about the band. It's a very short one this week. Sure. I hadn't heard nothing. This is the first time I've ever heard of them, was when you mentioned them before we was recording. So so I'm going in completely blank. So yeah, and that's the bit on my notes with the disclosure bit. But the You're My Loving Now. So you talked about, like, particularly in the 2007 time and stuff. My initial thoughts about it was that it's very what's the word I'm thinking of? Emblematic of the time as well. There are parts where it sounds very 2007, and some of the names.
100%.
Some of the names of those bands that you mentioned as well, like My Chemical Romance, even Panic at the Disco and stuff. You can kind of see elements of all these different, like, bands and those different sounds all coming together to try and kind of, like, create this album. Like, you like think, oh, like you particularly in the first song where there's that, like, kind of piano sound which sounds like it was coming from a Panic at the Disco album, or then you've got kind of like almost the Beach Boys-esque types later on and stuff. And yeah, it's kind of like an interesting mix of all these different sounds.
It's weird because for, like, the emo scene, vocal purity was a real thing, right? Like, the vocals were really clear, and sometimes you'd be like even screamo would have like a rasp, but, like, you know, Gerard Way's voice is crystal perfectly clear, and, like, the Mo Davis brothers are just, like, sound like they've been gargling marbles the entire record. They're just, like, kind of barking the lyrics at times, which is really interesting and kind of creates a different relationship with the audience. So, to prepare for this show, I listened to a bunch of episodes of Pick a Disc. Huge fan of the podcast.
Oh, thank you.
And in the My Chemical Romance episode, you had mentioned that you misheard a lyric from the Black Parade.
Yes.
That the actual lyric is, though you're dead and gone, believe me.
Yes.
But you heard
cynical
something else.
Yeah, cynical. Yeah.
I am here to tell you that I did the exact same thing.
Yes, thank you.
Vindication. To this day, I found out that it wasn't cynical from your show.
I mean, I'm I did. I mean, I put a quick poll on Instagram, and only 2 people. No, 3 people responded.
Number 4 right here. Yeah. And I also agree that cynical is better.
Yeah. Thank you.
I play in a band, and I once had this happen to me where a friend of mine kind of misheard one of the lyrics and said, "Hey, is this the lyric of the song?" And I said, "Well, it is now," because it was an improvement over what I had written. So, like, yeah, you should write a letter to Gerard Way and be like, "This is better."
Yeah, you got your own song wrong, but no, that changes that line.
Completely.
That line, it changes that. The word cynical is much more powerful. But anyway, so from that feeling of vindication, we unfortunately have to go to the real reason we're here. So the album itself is, again, it's like an interesting combination of all these different styles and sounds, and
there's like a little bit of Talking Heads in there, and Clap Your Hands, Say Yeah, and little bit of like Iggy Pop, and it's such a weird mixture of things that create something so emblematic of the time.
There's a couple of examples of it as we get to the songs specifically later on, but there are parts where the lyrics seem to also try and capture the same things that you got in pop punk. Like, there are some songs which nothing on this album sounds like Blink-182, but there are songs in here which seem to want to cover similar kind of storytelling in the same mold, but in a very slightly different way as well. So there's a specific song, I'll point that out a bit later, but there's a couple of reviews that were online, and they kind of couple of them that I picked up on kind of have that kind of same thing where it seems like a mesh of different sounds and styles and stuff. There's one from Pop Matters, which I'm going to read out slightly a bit, because the first part's quite good. The second part has, I'll get your opinion on this in a second. So,
sure.
At times, the teeth sound like the Decemberists without the finishing school, Belle and Sebastian minus the Scottish Catholic school Kid Reserve, and Modest Mouth sans crippling existential angst. If the best parts of your record collection somehow got mashed up together by Morrissey, John Lennon, and Joe Strummer, My Lover Now will be the end result. That last sentence hasn't dated well.
No, it hasn't dated well, but I get the idea, you know.
Yeah. So particularly with the mention of Morrissey and John Lennon, but again, then again, I can kind of see the Smiths' influence, who at the moment I'm referring to as Johnny Marr's band.
Why has Morrissey done anything problematic lately?
I don't know. It's been about 5 minutes. I think he. So he's not at open his mouth for a yawn yet, but particularly with like the Smiths as well. I mean, I think there's one of the songs which is a blatant reference.
There's a light that always goes out.
Yeah, that light always goes out, which is there is a light that always goes out, and that can't possibly be a.
No, that is likely not a coincidence.
Yeah, but so it's not exactly a. It doesn't seem to be just like it's something that's been picked up by quite a few people. That it's like a nice collection of stuff, and I mean there are kind of I quite like albums that like that because then it feels like more either bespoke for the band themselves. So and like you can listen to something and think goes, oh, so you like that band and you like those elements of it, so we'll take those elements of that band and we'll take elements of that band, we'll put it into the melting pot, we'll cook it and see what comes out and stuff, and it kind of works.
I think all art does that to an extent, and I respect bands that are transparent about it, you know? Like transparent in their references and transparent in even like referencing previous songs on the record, which we'll talk about when we get to the song part. But yeah, it's like, it's interesting because to me it feels very unique. Nothing can be very unique. It sounds unique to the Teeth. It is the Teeth's sound. And yet I do also hear all the influences. So it's not like they just regurgitated these bands that are influencing them. They melted it down and they created something new, to my ear at least.
Yeah. A close analog that I can think of is on the previous episode, which hasn't aired yet at the time of recording, actually. So the closest analog I can think of is what we talked about in a previous episode, which is the Wolf Alice album, My Love Is Cool. Again, one of my favourite albums of all time. One of the big things with that is that that's another album which seems to take so many different genres together and melds them in. So you got like an album with so many different things, yet they have a unique identity in that you can still tell it's a Wolf Alice song.
Right.
And I get this. I get that feeling with this as well, where like you could probably listen to this and you could tell it's like, oh, it's the Teeth. It's not
some Morrissey cover band.
Yeah. And I think, and I do quite like that kind of when a band can have that.
Yeah.
So I can kind of see how people are thinking, oh, they could get really excited about these, about this band, and like because they seem to be doing more like morphing things together in a way that I think Wolf Alice was doing with kind of like shoegaze, grunge. Almost like pop,
which I also love.
Oh, of course, it's a given.
Everyone loves shoegaze grunge.
Yes.
I also want to point out that this album is 38 minutes and 4 seconds long, which is the exact right length of an album. Like between 37 and 38 minutes is the length of any album should be, because that's the length of Ziggy Stardust and the Spiders from Mars.
I mean, my perfect length is like between 30 and 35. I might push it to 40, but yeah. So it's the song length that gets me as long term listeners. This go as well, and as in 38 minutes, there's 14 tracks, so none of the songs are stupidly long either. So that's a good big thumbs up from me. So yeah, the longest song is about 3 minutes and
3 minutes and 20 seconds. Yeah.
There's like quite a lot of songs that don't reach 3 minutes, which again ticks so many boxes. So it's so there's no kind of long epics on this, but I think what I found is what it means. It kind of keeps things interesting, so the songs don't overstay their welcome, so they can kind of experiment and tweak.
100%. Yeah, I think the best thing that a song can do is make you want to go back and listen to it again immediately. Yeah,
exactly. And then sometimes if you listen to it again, you'll have some songs on some albums where the time you listen to a song twice, one song is finished off another album and stuff.
I think we should also mention that T-Rex is a huge influence on this sound too.
Oh, okay. Oh, with the kind of like 70s glam.
It's like proto glam, because it's not super overproduced like like a Foxy Shazam or something, but it feels like, those weirdo half jazz, half rock and roll songs that T-Rex was doing.
Oh, okay. I never picked up on that. but thinking about it, because I picked up quite like a 60s surf vibe on a few things, but I didn't pick up the guy. No, yeah, actually, that makes sense, actually, particularly with some of the, because like they do some quite interesting sounds with some of the piano stuff on a few of the songs.
Yeah.
So, okay. Before we talk about the songs as well, something that I keep meaning to ask certain guests and probably keep forgetting to ask them. So you're a songwriter yourself with your band, whose album I have listened to, and I'm going.
Oh, you've listened to our record?
Yeah, and I'm gonna. I'm suddenly blanking on the name of your band. I'm so sorry.
So we're called Jacob the Horse, and our.
I was about to say my horse Jacob, but
close enough.
Yeah.
We're called Jacob the Horse, and we just released an album called College Party Mixtape Volume 1.
Yeah. So was this a bit of has this influenced you in terms of songwriting and?
Yeah, absolutely. And like weirdly like deconstruction of certain parts of the song. So there's a song called The Coolest Kid in School that has a background vocal that just has the background singers going do 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 do. And so I like wrote a song in 2009 that had that little background thing. And there's like a recurring motif in a couple songs. A melodic motif that I like stole for a different one of the songs. But interestingly enough, that record, College Party Mixtape Volume 1, is a autobiographical record that kind of takes I like went to explore unfinished songs or rewrite old songs from when I was like 17 up until now. I'm 35. And so like some of the songs were written in the era where I was like blatantly ripping off the teeth. And so, yeah, they are a huge inspiration. Also, in terms of arrangement, they're a huge inspiration. So like the way that this is produced is super interesting because the guitars are not super distorted. They're panned super hard left and right. And in certain songs, they do this like call and response with their riffs or with their chords that adds this amazing texture to listening to the record, and also gives me a sense. I know that this is like a false thing that I'm about to say, but it gives me a sense of the two twin brothers, you know, like going back and forth, but one of the brothers was the bassist. So like that's not actually true, but it just feels like twins going back and forth, but isn't actually played by the twins.
Oh, okay. I mean, one of the things in music that draws me to some of my favourite bands is I'm a fan of tag team vocals. From the sounds of it, this might be an album that has tag team guitar parts.
Yeah.
When you think of this album, which songs jump out to you and which ones do you want to...
So I re-listened to this album in its entirety this morning to like kind of spruce up. But when you say You're My Lover Now, I hear the first piano thing in Molly Make Him Pay, which is the first record. Like it, like compulsively in my head, I hear those piano plunks. And I'm
assuming that because of the whole album as well, is like if you start hearing that start beat, it's like a case. Yep, I've got to listen to the whole album now.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But also like it's just such a strong opening. It's such a good, energetic opening track that like lets you know that you're in for this weird. It's like a quasi concept album. I think all the songs are kind of centered around the same person, whether she exists or not. I don't know. But yeah, Molly Make Him Pay is just such a good song, and the whole song itself tells an interesting story.
Yeah, I think one of the things that jumped out again was the piano that opened the album.
Yeah,
and it reminded me so much of like particularly earlier Panic in the Disco, and there's that kind of like almost like a sense of that show tune piano, like a stage show element to it,
like a torch song. Yeah.
So like and like it's like I was half expecting Brendan Urie to suddenly start singing, but yeah, no, I agree. It's a very good opening song. It's got that kind of like interesting hook of "Why Do You Care?" that works quite well.
And so there's two things I want to say. Going into the second verse before the lyrics start, I can't tell who's singing because they have two lead singers. They do tandem vocals, but they're the twins, and so you cannot tell when they're switching.
Okay.
Because they have the same voice. But going into the second verse before the lyrics start, one of the twins just barks. He goes, "Ah!" And I just like,
Yes.
I love that. That's just like, it kicks me into overdrive. And there is this kind of circus era sort of, there's this circus themes thing happening in Philadelphia in the music scene at the time, because around this time, like Man Man is also happening, and this band called Make a Rising, which my friend Nick was in, and even Dr. Dog, they're all kind of embracing this weird theatricality that this song over any other song on the record super does.
Yeah, and it kind of has that kind of like show feel to it. So like there's a performative aspect to it, which I think works. Again,
and also toward the end of the song, so the song is like all in minor all the time, and then at the very end there's this like extra part that doesn't feel like the part of the rest of the song, and the lyrics are, just for one day the world turns to you, but don't look away, tomorrow flowers bloom, and on bloom everything resolves in the major, and it feels like you have been tense, like your spine has been tensed up this entire 3-minute song, and then finally you can, the clouds can part and the sun can come out.
Yeah. And I think, and just to briefly talk about the lyrics, as I've always said, I'm a lyrics guy, and your podcast is about lyrics as well.
Yes.
So in terms of the actual story of the song, it seems to be, I think it's like almost like a positive song in terms of like trying to cheer someone up. Yeah,
it seems like the singer is talking to Molly, and Molly has an abusive boyfriend that she's trying to break free from.
Yeah, and again that last kind of quartet you were talking about, just for one day the world turns to you, but don't look away, tomorrow flowers bloom, is considering it has a sound of, it sounds like of like the kind of emo popish sound that you had, where you kind of expect it to be negative. Kind of be negative. It's actually quite a positive note to end the song on. So
yeah, I mean, it's gotta invoke like the sun will come out tomorrow, right?
Yeah, and I quite liked how that kind of ended and stuff. So what song do you want to talk about next?
Oh man, so before the show started, you're like, we can't talk about every song, but I want to just I'll run through a couple real fast. So the top 4, 5, 6, 7, like the first 7 songs on this 14 song record are all under 3 minutes, and just like banger after banger after banger. So I think Trumpets Blared and Shoulder Blade, which are the next 2 songs, are absolutely amazing, and but have the same kind of manic energy. And then A Fight in the Dark is this like weird doo-wop song. So I'd love to talk about A Fight in the Dark.
Yeah, definitely. If you're going to skip over Trumpets Blade, I will briefly mention that there's 2 things I had down for that. One, I quite like how it seems to be about people drinking or getting more rowdy and stuff, and I do appreciate that. I think in the second or third verse there are added elements which start to make the actual guitars and the arrangements sound slightly off.
Sloppier.
Yeah, as if like they are playing, as if they're getting drunk as they are playing the song and stuff.
Which is entirely possible. And also if we are going to talk about Trumpets Blared, so the song's called Trumpets Blared, and it starts with a guitar riff, but like to me, when I hear that guitar riff, I hear a trumpet playing it, right? So there's like an instrument as another instrument sort of thing, which is interesting.
Yeah, there's also like, particularly in, I think it's again forming in the second or third verse, there's the kind of really weird either I can't tell if they're actual trumpets or just really synth sounds that make supposed to sound like them, but they're kind of like these weird sounds that go in the background. And as sometimes in the preparation to this, I'll either put on albums where I'm either doing kind of mundane tasks like DIY or washing up or like cutting the grass or something, or sometimes I have found that I can basically take control of the Spotify app on my PS4.
Oh, sure.
So a couple of days ago, I was pretty much playing Red Dead Redemption 2 whilst listening to this, and
that's an interesting
combination,
pairing,
yes.
for sure. Yeah,
yeah. But there are moments, and because it removes the music layer from any game you're playing to replace it with this, but it keeps the sound effects. And I think I pretty much got killed and died in Red Dead 2, and there's always this kind of like low kind of Inception sound,
which works with this song for sure.
Yeah, so that started going through it, and I couldn't, and it was during this song, and it turns out I kind of somehow timed it that sound that the game makes and the sounds from that. A few times I had to pause the game just to make sure that the sound and this what the sound was coming from, and it shocked me that at one time the sound was coming from the song, and that's how I picked up that sound. So
that's fun.
Yeah, so so if you ever want an interesting soundtrack to robbing a train on a horse.
So Fight in the Dark is really cool. So that's the fourth Shoulder Blade's also awesome. They're all awesome. But A Fight in the Dark takes it down and is this this doo-wop song in the middle of this weird pop record.
Yeah, because what I found quite interesting with this as well is that, again, there's quite nice stuff going on in the background. Like, I'm a big fan of violins, and you can kind of hear quite a lot of those. It's either violins or it might be string. Again, if I get the instruments wrong, I'm completely sorry. But it sounds like violins anyway. But like some nice string, like a single string arrangement going in the background, which kind of adds.
Yeah, some of it is like synth, and some of it is voices, and some of it is actual strings.
So I'm being quite fun, and it does like kind of like stop, which kind of like stopping the track and stuff, and it makes you change that it's not track 3, because usually that's when they throw in the slow song.
So I just want to point out some of the lyrics in A Fight in the Dark, which is the couplet. The skin on that nose is beginning to peel. You think you're his umbrella, but you're his Ferris wheel. And they're like, that's so, I don't even know what the fuck that means, but I know it means like something. I've thought about it for 11, 12 years. Just like, what could that, there's so many interpretations of that, but it's like, none of them are good.
Yeah, it's going nose begin to peel. You think you're his umbrella, you're his Ferris wheel.
So you think that you are protecting him, but he only gets on you when he wants a ride? ?
Or I don't know. I think like thinking about it, if you've got the umbrella which is shielding from anything that's going on high, whereas Ferris wheels, the function of a Ferris wheel is to take you as high as the Ferris wheel can go and push you up in front. So
right.
I don't know. It might, again, it could be the case that instead of you the person
you're
being
exposed as opposed to protected.
Yeah, so or you're not actually protecting him. He's putting you. He's like using you as a human shield. But then, I think it's just an interesting visual to say that instead of protecting, he'll pull you in front of him if, like, I don't know, someone had a gun or something.
I also like that the songwriters don't like show their work in this. They don't like go on to elaborate on this metaphor. They're just like, this is the situation. Make of it what you will. Yeah,
it's like there's almost like a first draft element to it, like going, do we make this more elaborate? Nah, sod it, we'll keep it.
Fuck it, yeah.
Yeah, sod, we'll keep it that way and stuff. But no, that's quite it's an interesting video when you think about it.
Yeah.
And
so. I'd also love to talk about your feelings on Life, which has this weird kind of shuffle punk drum beat that feels like the inside of my brain sometimes. But there is a moment, lyrically, melody-wise, where Peter Mo Davis sings, I know that I haven't been honest, I've been drinking more than just twice a week. And then in It's Not Funny, which is 7 tracks later, he repeats that melodic line where he goes, and I saw that little bird laying there, he was miles and miles away. And so, like, bringing back one melodic line 7 songs later on the record to make you feel like these things are tied, like that this whole thing is cohesive, is like just such a great kind of frizzen feeling. It's so rewarding as like one of the closers of the record.
Oh, okay. I never caught that.
That's okay. I've listened to this like 150 times. And that's also the melodic line that I stole for one of my songs, which is why I definitely know that it's there.
So you're feeling on Life, I actually quite like that one as well.
Me too.
There are kind of like, again, this is the one that I've put in my notes that it's saying so much like 2007.
Yes.
And it's quite simplistic in terms of its lyrics, but again, I quite like that. And there's that kind of guitar solo which is kind of like very like kind of landfill indie in terms of ways, but I
that also feels like a first draft.
Yeah.
Like they're like, well, we're half of these notes are wrong, but like, fuck it.
Yes, exactly. Yes, but yeah, I quite like the quite like that bit as well. So, any others that you want to mention?
Oh, tons.
Yeah.
Hang on one second. So I navigated the way. So Ball of a Dead Rat is great. Is super fucking weird, like dark Beach Boys. And I think the quintessential song on the record is "It's Not Funny," and it's the longest song on the record. And at 3:19, it's still like shorter than the perfect pop song length or whatever. But it's just such a good kind of all around wrap up to the album.
Yeah. We'll get back to Ball of the Dead Rat in a second. And there's something I want to bring up with that, but with It's Not Funny, I quite like how it kind of nearly goes shambolic in its nature, but then because quite a few albums I quite like kind of go into this kind of like almost feedbacky shambolic like noise bit. But then what I found quite interesting with this is that it somehow manages to. There's also like an audio lasso of a melody which kind of starts playing after it nearly gets out of control, and somehow manages to make it all seem like it's part of the melody. And I really quite appreciate how well that sounded.
Yeah, and I think that is kind of an echo of Molly Make Him Pay, right? Because Molly Make Him Pay is this weird, out of control circus, and then it resolves in this nice, optimistic major chord. And this kind of does the same thing, where it becomes this mess where he's like not even singing anymore. He's just like saying things. And then they have this kind of chant of bones grow, hair grows, rain falls, that's enough. And it feels like this kind of we're landing this in not quite a mess.
Yeah. Going back slightly to Ball of the Dead Rat, and not Ballad of the Dead Rat, but
well, jury's still out.
Yes, yeah. So, but randomly, I discovered I found a article from 2019, on noise. The hard noise,
which is the hard drive. Non-satirical hard drive site,
the hardtimes.net.
Hard Times.
Yeah. So the title Spotify discovered weekly algorithm sent millions of listeners to this small broken up band, and it's the only article on this, but there's like this article about the fact that for some reason Ball of the Dead Rat starting to appear randomly on a bunch of different Spotify weekly.
I don't actually know how random it is, because Park the Van re-released the vinyl of You're My Lover Now in 2019.
Oh,
and
okay.
So this might have been like coinciding with that, but like, yeah, Spotify is a mystery to me. So like, who the fuck knows?
But yeah, it's just like, I mean, because if you look at the play numbers on those songs and stuff, there is, Your Feeling on Life is the only one that's in six figures. All the others are from 32,000 to about 90,000. Then suddenly, Ball of the Dead Rat, 2.5 million.
Right. Yeah, I truly have no idea. Other than this song is like awesome, I truly have no idea why this like that one latched on to people. It was their first single on the record in 2007, and it's got just some of the most amazingly delivered lyrics of all time. Which is in the second verse. He goes, so I could talk about just this one verse for forever, but we have the first part of the first verse, which is just Aaron Mo Davis singing. And then he goes, and you don't want to be alone. and then you've got your cigarettes, and on cigarettes there's a harmony, right? So the music is reacting to the lyrics because you don't want to be alone. You've got your cigarettes, and your cigarettes are singing along with you. And then he goes, you've got your juji fruits, and it makes me laugh every fucking time.
It's and again, so this is probably the only song on the album which has genius annotations, and it's probably because of the
popularity.
Popularity of it. But you got your cigarettes and you got your Julie Fruits. That's annotated. You click onto that. The genius annotation.
Sure.
Yeah, actually, there's quite a lot of genius annotations. The genius annotation for those two lines, because it's shared, 2 contributors. The person the singer writes about has 2 indulgences: cigarettes and gummy candies, specifically Julie Fruits, and that's it.
So there's actually a citation on. I mean, like I found an article that confirms that, which is a Daytrotter interview from June 4th, 2007. And so because the band is called The Teeth, the Daytrotter people, which is owned by Paste now, the first question was, when was the last time you were at the dentist? And Aaron says, my teeth are very nice. Recently, they told me they were going to fall out when I'm older because I eat candy and I smoke cigarettes. So, like, we have confirmation that he smokes cigarettes and potentially eats juji fruits.
Wow. So
double confirmed.
Wow, so the genius annotation is really needs to be fleshed out on that one.
Yeah.
But, because that is pretty much just reiterating the line. But I just find that quite... But yeah, no, it's... I mean... that probably makes sense then if it was actually reverb.
That there is some kind of evidence to support that they smoke.
Yeah, but I think said with the reissue. That's it. The reissue. Of, of the album on vinyl. That probably makes sense then if they are kind of trying to push the thing and stuff. But yeah,
I'm also really fascinated by the fact that they're twins, and so then after Juji Fruits, the line is, you can't stand yourself, so you take a substitute. And in my own kind of headcanon, that is referring to like taking one twin over the other twin. Because like that's the truest substitute.
Okay. Are they identical then?
I don't actually know. I didn't ask them when I met them, but Peter has dark hair and Aaron at the time had lighter hair, so I'm not sure if they're identical, but I know that they're twins.
Okay. And say the YouTube comments on some of these as well is like, first one was like, first heard this on my Spotify Discover playlist this week. Excellent tune. Yeah, quite a few people saying about finding it on Spotify weekly. So that's interesting. Then again, though, it is kind of one of the things that I'm not much a fan of on YouTube comments, where people saying, "Oh, hear from so and so, hear from so and so."
Yeah, someone referred me here from this place.
Yeah, got this from TikTok. So, yeah, and then you suddenly have someone saying, "Goes, so here before people who say they're from TikTok." Yeah.
Oh yeah, right.
I just need to stop.
We truly know that I was there first because I saw them and let them sleep on my couch.
Yes. That's when you just suddenly come into the YouTube comments saying they slept on my couch and then walk out. Before we move on briefly to quickly the reception of it, the song that I made reference to beforehand about the one that was almost like Blink-182 in its themes of teenage angst and stuff, is You're My Lover Now, where...
Oh, really?
Yeah, because I was particularly like about 15 minutes before we started recording, I was doing like a last minute skips just to double check on stuff, and the lyrics on this one, it feels like it's a 15-year-old writing them. And I don't mean that negatively. I mean, it seems to manage to capture a voice.
This angst, yeah.
Yeah. And like,
stupid girl stumbling down the stairs, pumpkin pie dress and paper in her hair is like pumpkin pie dress. Like, once again, it's one of those metaphors that like doesn't make sense at all and yet makes perfect sense. This is also a song where the singer just barks before starting the lyrics.
But yeah, but like the chorus says, "Oh, I don't care about anything because you're my lover now. No, I don't care about anything because you're my lover now." It's like the single one-track minded, like kind of like teenager, ooh, girlfriend. And that's like everyone else is void and stuff. And then it's like this weird. Then like the verse 2 has that, "Why's your shadow always big up on that wall? How come you never come look for me when I call? I would, blah blah blah. There's like that immediately kind of like million different conflicting things that like 15-year-old boys will have in their head, and that just seems to that kind of like automatic like kind of like questioning of every single thing. It has that kind of like teenage. It just reminds me of that kind of teenage narrative.
Yeah, it reminds me of like getting into a fight in the parking lot of a warehouse in like West Philadelphia in like 2005.
Yes. but there's like I just quite like how it seems to capture a voice, a teenage voice and stuff, which I think is themes that are done by, as I like Blink-182. The reason like I say that is because I think they're still fresh in my head from like recording previous episode a while ago now. But but I quite and whilst that data seems to capture an actual voice, I do quite like how this seems to feel like it's written by the person of that age and stuff. And I really appreciate it, how much that paid off quite well.
Yeah, I like all the songs on the record. I just love this record so much, and I think it does it captures this kind of immediacy of emotion and griminess that the Philadelphia music scene had at the time, where like everything was in a basement or a warehouse, and everyone was too drunk to play but not too drunk to fight, and it really is like time travel to me.
So briefly talking about the reception of the album. So this is quite favourable reviews. So AllMusic gave it 4 out of 5. Dallas Observer gave it a favourable. Filter Magazine 91 out of 100. Pretty much in the highs of them. Time Out New York gave it
4 out of 6 stars, which doesn't really make sense in terms of a number of stars, but sure.
But so it's generally favoured to be good, and which is pretty good considering then it turned out to be their last album. But I mean, do you remember much about any reception at the time, or?
Yeah, I think that people were really thinking that this was going to be the next big band in the indie world, and they were kind of shoulder to shoulder with bands like Dr. Dog, who released Fate, which was their super breakthrough album in 2008, and The War on Drugs, which was also just kind of coming up in Philly at the time as well. Oh, yeah. So, funny story, after they broke up, I had tickets to see them open for another band, and because they had broken up, War on Drugs replaced them.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
Okay. So how did because you briefly mentioned before we started recording that you found out they broke up.
Yes,
in
online.
A strange way online.
So for those elder millennials, there used to be a website called Daytrotter, which would do live music sessions and allow them for download, and so the Teeth did too. And I highly, highly, highly recommend getting those sessions either from YouTube, or you can sign up at pacemagazine.com and download them, because that captures some of the live show energy. But I know that they had recorded a session at South by Southwest, and I was waiting for it to come out, and so I went to Daytrotter the day it was supposed to come out, which was, now that I'm looking at it, April 11th 2008, and the title of the article was no, and so I just want to read a little bit of kind of the truest obituary of the Teeth, and it was written by, doesn't say anymore, which is kind of shitty, but it was written by someone from Daytrotter. So this letter, proudly open for all to see, was going to start and end with 36 exclamations of "Don't do it! Don't do it! Don't do it! Don't do it!" It was going to start with fierce anger in all capital letters and gradually mellow into a slow absorption of the reality and a conclusion that little said here can change what you went through that led you to break up 2 weeks ago, blindsiding all of us. These days of mourning were never supposed to bear down on us. These April showers that have been flooding basements and including sluggishness in the blue and white and no-collared workers all over this great nation of ours are not precisely for the forthcoming Mayflowers, boys. No, sirs. They say when it thunders, it means that God's bowling. Well, we'd concur. These days, if you hear the invisibility around you bellowing with an impeding downpour, it's God throwing a goddamn tantrum, a hissy fit, because the Teeth, you guys, were not just the people's band. 4 guys to share their sweaty stink of all the goodies from their fanny packs. Oh, sweaty stink, all the goodies from their fanny packs, their smokes, their beer, clicking cheers, their youth, and their riveting songs about stupid-ass girls and the boys that still long for them. You were the big man's band. It's no religious connotation, just a flagrant fact that some higher creation puts you 4 men together to comprise the wiliest, most inventive, and shakingest live rock and roll band that this green earth has ever had the privilege of claiming. And it goes on that's about a third of it. It goes on from there as just a true direct obituary for the Teeth. And so I read that the day that their Day Trotter session came out, not knowing that they had broken up, and I just cried at work because even though they had only released a couple of records and an EP, this writer is correct. There is something about them that made everyone who loved them feel less alone. And that was maybe unfair to put on them as people who were barely out of their teens, let's say. They're like in their mid-20s at the time. But that's the weird thing about art, right? Is that like once it's out in the world, it's no longer the artist's, it's like all of ours. And so knowing in that moment and being, 22 or whatever, and knowing that I would never hear a new Teeth song really broke me up.
Wow, it's really well written.
Super well written.
Yeah.
I highly recommend you going to Paste, and everyone listening going to pastemusic.com and reading the rest of it, because it's fantastic. And while you're at it, listen to their songs.
Definitely have to give that one a check that one out. But yeah, so it's it's a shame you had to find out that way. But again, it's probably well written way of like finding that out. I mean, ideally, probably would have just said, "Oh yeah, ideally, you probably want to see the opposite of what it's about." But so yeah, I know we now know the answer to this, but it's the bit where you say, "Have you ever seen them live?" Which you have.
I saw them live once, and I bought tickets to see them again, and so they owe me a fucking show. I'm still waiting.
Yes. Still waiting to hear.
And I was fortunate enough, I made a movie. I'm a filmmaker. I made a short film in 2011 and contacted them through Facebook or Twitter or something, asking permission to use one of their songs in the movie, and they allowed me. So that's nice.
Okay. That's nice.
Yeah.
Nice. So, so you saw them live once, and that just basically made you fall in love with them. So this is their final album, correct? Mm-hmm. So if people want to venture into any of their previous stuff, where would you recommend them going? So
yeah, I would start with this, and then go to the EP Carry the Wood, which is also, it feels like a brother to this record. It's got amazing tunes and a great hidden track. And then their first album is called Send My Regards to the Sunshine, which was released 5 years before this album. And it sounds different. It's a little bit more mathy. It's a little bit more jazzy. I don't want to say that they're finding their sound still, but it just is it sounds a little different, but it's still good. I was revisiting that today. Cause I know that album way less than I know this one. But that's it. That's and truly, I cannot recommend highly enough. Maybe even start with the Day Trotter sessions, because they are totally manic.
Okay, I'll have to check out the Day Trotter sessions. Yeah, I'm interested to see how it translates live. So yeah, definitely say that. So yeah, we're coming up to the end of our conversation, and we're here for the important question, the important bit, which is the song for the Hall of Fame playlist. Where for people who have not listened to the show before, what this is I'll ask Aviv to pick one song from the album to be immortalised forever on the Spotify Hall of Fame, and yeah, so I can't veto it. I've got no say on. I can't deny his choice. And this will be following the Gaslight Anthem. So
love a Gaslight Anthem.
So which song are you going to pick that will follow Mulholland Drive by Gaslight Anthem?
I gotta do It's Not Funny by The Teeth. The 13th track off of You're My Lover Now. Yeah. Which I know that you don't like long songs. This is the longest song on the record. It's 3 minutes and 19 seconds.
Hey, if every long song was 3 minutes and 19 seconds, I'd never have the concept of the Latham limit.
No more gripes.
Yeah, or the concept of the Latham limit, which is what John Porrible referred to as my when does a song reach the Latham limit? When does it get too long? So
yeah, I think just like B4, like Bohemian Rhapsody are just B4 different songs.
Yeah. See, Bohemian Rhapsody is one of the rare ones that I don't mind listening to. I think it depends on the actual song itself, but so It's Not Funny joins the Pantheon and is the 67th song to go onto the playlist. So and I think with that we are now at the end of our conversation. And
yes.
And at the end of the episode. And the last thing we're going to do is if people want to find you and listen to your podcast or your music, where can they find you?
Yes, so I host a podcast with my good friend Lindsay Tucker. It's called Lyrics for Lunch, and it's a deep dive analysis onto some of the more famous songs from music history. We won't be doing The Teeth, unfortunately, but we've done the likes of Fuck the Police and Respect, and we just wrapped Toto's Africa this morning. Spoiler alert, not great.
This will probably air after that.
And yeah, this will air after our episode airs. And you can find us at Lyrics for Lunch on Instagram and Twitter. And if you want to listen to my music blatantly ripped off from The Teeth and other bands from Philadelphia, you can find us Jacob the Horse on Instagram and Twitter.
Yeah, I can't recommend Lyrics for Lunch. So it's quickly become a must listen when it first comes out. I mean, at the time of recording, there's only about 8 episodes on, and it's quite rare to hear a podcast that feels fully formed very early on. So whereas episode 3 sounded like episode 33.
Well, thank you. That's a huge compliment. If you're a fan of this podcast, if you're a fan of things like The Dollop or You're Wrong About, we just do that with music.
I can't recommend Lyrics for Lunch enough. And
thank you so much. I had a great time on this podcast. I'm sure Lindsay would love to come on here as well to talk about something less esoteric than The Teeth.
Yeah, invitation's always open, and
Awesome.
hopefully chat to her in the future about it. So again, thank you ever so much for coming on and talking to me about The Teeth.
Ah, hell yeah! Thank you for letting me spout off about one of my favorite bands that no one's ever heard of.
You've been listening to Pick a Disc, and I've been your host, Matthew Latham. Our theme music is Pump by Kevin MacLeod of Incompetech.com. Pick a Disc is hosted by the We Made This podcast network, and you can find them on www.spreaker.com/user/We Made This. You can find the Pick a Disc show site on www.spreaker.com/show/pickadisc. You can find us on all the usual social media type places like Facebook, Instagram, Twitter under Pick a Disc. You can also email us on pickadisc@gmail.com. Until next time, happy listening to all those discs that you are picking. Goodbye.
Of talent who talk about all kinds of pop culture content, such as the episode you've just listened to, or maybe you're just about to listen to. We're not going anywhere, but we'd love to keep the lights on for even longer if you're able to support our network on Patreon. For just £2 a month, you get your name in lights and the satisfaction of knowing you're helping us produce more great audio. And for £3 a month, you'll get your name in lights, but you'll also get access to an exclusive bi-monthly podcast from the We Made This talent pool on podcasting, pop culture, and, well, you tell us. We'll take your suggestions. For less than the price of a coffee per month, you can help keep We Made This going. Just head to patreon.com/We Made This. That's patreon.com/We Made This. And get the ball rolling. Now, back to your scheduled programming. Elsewhere on We Made This. Frame to frame.
I do find that on Please Mr. Kennedy, it always tickles me when Adam Driver pops up.
Yeah.
I think that the ridiculous insertions that he has in the song is what makes it.
Older? space, outer space. Just all that.
It's just absurd.
I just love it.
Is very kitsch, and then you've got that.
Yeah, I just love the. Oh no! He just throws in things like that. It's just great. This is the first film I saw Adam Driver in, and he's only in it for about 5 minutes, and he almost steals the entire movie. That's what a great actor he is. Although obviously one must credit the Coen brothers with the brilliant attention to detail in the music and the writing and the direction, as you'd expect.
Yeah.
Cerebral Jukebox.
My friend had a Nimrod t-shirt. Quite a few people I knew had Nimrod t-shirts.
Yeah.
The kind of the famous one. And I think I must have seen that album cover every day.
Yeah.
For 2 years.
To me, I think Nimrod could be the perfect rock album. I don't think there's a better all-round rock album than Nimrod. American Idiot is exceptional, but there's something about Nimrod that ticks so many boxes and has so much diversity on it. I think it could be the best album ever made.
Pretty Fly, a 90s nostalgia podcast.
People like me have benefited from that for generations. Now that that's being challenged, centuries, 100%. You've got people that are understanding, and I'm not ashamed of who I am or where I'm from, but that, doesn't mean that I can't sit back and say, hey, other people catching up ain't a bad thing.
Absolutely. I just want to remind the listeners, this is a Rugrats podcast.
This has got deep and serious at the moment.
Check out all of these shows and more on the We Made This podcast network.